Hello and welcome to Bodied, a Cloud9 fancast. I am your host, havokpus, and once again, Frozen Creek is out and about, so it's just going to be me today. Another week of some stuff happening. Not a whole lot is going on as last week. I do have some Overwatch news, some Valorant news, and of course, talking about League of Legends. Dipping just right in, cutting into the chase with Overwatch. The team was playing in the Mid-Season Madness global tournament. It being the mid-season of the Overwatch League, the team got a spot, and they played. The first match was against the Atlanta Reign, which they won 3-1, which I think everyone expected them to win. They then moved on to the San Francisco Shock, who they lost to 1-3, which was maybe expected, but also kind of unfortunate. They moved to the losers bracket, and they played the Florida Mayhem, and it was a really close match, but they ended up losing 3-2. I think they lost to Florida before, and I think they also maybe lost 3-2, so it's kind of unfortunate that they once again lost to Florida. So kind of an unfortunate finish, I think, especially after all the momentum they were building up in this season so far, to kind of lose and drop out of the tournament so quickly. But I think the team played all right overall. I think the team just has to keep practicing, keep trying. They really, it seems like they do have some potential where they can maybe beat some higher kind of teams in the leaderboards, but there's just kind of struggling, I think, when it comes to taking on teams of a certain skill level. But hopefully they learned a lot from this tournament, and I think that they can come back when their next matches and really try to start punching above their weight and kind of taking on stronger opponents. So hopefully they can do well there. Moving over to Valorant, the team is playing in the MEL Premiership Tournament. They most recently played against TSM Academy, and they won 2-1. From when I was watching, the team kind of struggled a little bit. This is... I think it's still difficult to watch Cloud9 Blue just because this is such a different team than what we're used to seeing when Zeta was in the roster, and they had Coach Autumn. Now that both of them are gone, C9's really kind of struggling in some of their matches. They really seem to kind of have some difficult times on some matches, or some maps rather. I think, like, with Curry being in the roster, they've had to really kind of switch up their roles a bit. And the team's kind of been struggling to, I think, figure out who's exactly going to play what and who's going to do what. Hopefully the team can kind of figure it out and, I think, improve more. It seems like they are introducing more characters into the lineup. They're playing some Fade, they're playing some Neon. And I think that if they can add these the newer agents to their repertoire instead of just using the same old agents that they've been playing for forever, that can maybe help. I don't know exactly what direction Cloud9 Blue is going to go in. They seem kind of scattered about and kind of jumbled up. So hopefully they can improve, but I really don't know. But hopefully they can do well. Sorry. But yeah, moving on to League. Cloud9 had a weekend. They had a weekend. The team played against TSM and Immortals, as many of you know. And this was kind of like what I was saying last week when I was kind of previewing this game. I was talking about the TSM match. I was talking about the Immortals match. I was saying how these are going to be trap games. These are going to be games where we will easily slip up when we shouldn't, even though these teams are so low on the standings. We should easily beat these guys, but we can easily set ourselves up for failure. And that's kind of what happened somewhat. I think for the TSM match, I think we played really well. Fudge popped the heck off on Gangplank, and he absolutely crushed everybody. I think him also going the Crit Plank build really did help. Berserker actually kind of didn't do much. He was just kind of hopping around on Callista. But I think the big stars for that game were Blabber and Fudge. I think Sven also maybe deserves a mention because his movement was actually quite good with his engages. And it was really good to see Sven on kind of an engaged support. So far, he's been kind of just playing enchanters. So to see him being able to take up sort of the more engaged, tanky kind of support is good that he's able to play those roles. And I think the TSM match is what should be expected of this roster. Jensen kind of looked a little wonky. And that maybe is trending in sort of a bad direction considering he hasn't been necessarily playing that well and kind of living up to the expectations that a lot of people have of Jensen. And that could mean the difference between playoffs and getting into playoffs or going to Worlds. And that may be what hurts Cloud9. Considering what we saw in the Immortals game, the Immortals game was definitely a different sort of show. I don't really have a lot of complaints from the bot lane. I think Sven actually did a really good job as Braum. He was doing exactly what Braum needed to do. He was there to play defensively. He's able to kind of make counter engages with his ultimate and everything. Really the issue with this was sort of the opposite of the TSM game where Blabber was kind of a problem. I think he kind of trolled a bit. He was doing him, and I think to a lesser degree the rest of the team was just doing some stupid decisions in the mid-late game that ended up losing them the game. I think that play is kind of unacceptable, especially from Blabber. I really wasn't sure about the Kindred pick. I think Fudge also going AP Gragas instead of Tank Gragas really made it to where we just didn't have a front line, so we had like zero survivability. You know, Sven was our only tank, and outside of that, we were all just kind of getting murdered. And I think that's really what kind of set us up for failure. It was partially draft. I think really it was just came down to gameplay because we were winning up until we started trolling and just doing stupid mistakes. And it seems we really also just can't play against Corki. I don't know what it is. You'd think that Blabber and Jensen and the rest of the team would be able to play against Corki and to be able to take picks or do things to mitigate Corki. But that doesn't seem to happen. We're still struggling with Corki. Jensen looked really mediocre on Azir also. I was kind of excited to see the Azir pick because we don't really see much of it under Cloud9. We always seem to avoid Azir for different mages. And Jensen picking Azir, I was hoping to see some shuffle plays. I was hoping to see some big damage come in. I was hoping to see like a lot of like game-winning team fights in the later stages of the game because Azir was able to scale up really well and all that. But we didn't see that happening. Like Jensen looked like really bland on Azir, and Jensen may be the deciding factor of how the rest of our season goes if he doesn't pick it up and get it together and start playing like the Jensen that we know he can be, instead of being like this against Immortals. So that Immortals game really kind of upset me, especially since we shouldn't be playing like this. And I think it really shows a magnifying glass on our problems, which is, in my opinion, Blabber, I think, has some issues in the jungle that he has never been able to work out, and it's a weakness that can't get exploited, and it has been exploited in the past. And I think Jensen needs to get into form, and he kind of has to do it rather quickly. But moving on to this weekend, we will be playing against Dignitas on Saturday at 7:30 Eastern, and then on Sunday we will be playing against Golden Guardians. And I think we'll be able to do all right. Currently we are tied for Golden Guardians at 6th place, and Dignitas is at the bottom at 9th place, tied with Immortals. So I think this should be an all right weekend for us. I think we should be able to win. I'm not really concerned with Golden Guardians. I think to be fair, Golden Guardians has a decent roster. I actually have no problems with River in the jungle. I kind of like River. And Blue seems to be a good mid laner. I think really it's just they're not able to synergize well together to really play with the pieces that they play with. You know, Neo I think is a good player individually. They all have good individual pieces, but it seems like they just can't mesh together well to really get their game plan rolling along. Golden Guardians, I'm a little more shaky on. Their roster has some good pieces, and they've been playing all right. You know, they have Licorice, they have a Blaze Olive, who is an alright mid laner. They have Pride Stalker, who Pride Stalker is a pretty good jungler. They have Ole in 6A. So I think that really it's going to come down to if our mental is up to snuff and we can prepare enough and not do what we did this week. And I hope you didn't hear that. I dropped something. What was I saying? Oh, right. Like, so I think the big thing is that our mental doesn't kind of dissolve. I hope that we can stay focused and be prepared for not only Golden Guardians but for Dignitas. Or we're just going to fall into kind of the same trap that we did last weekend, where we kind of just go in whatever against one team, expecting those to win, having a poor game plan, and utilizing poor decision making. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think Blabber, especially, as well as the rest of the team, need to exercise good decision making. And we can beat Dig. I think we can totally beat Dig easily. Golden Guardians, we may have to have a little tougher time. Jensen, I think, is really going to have to come to play for the Golden Guardians match, because I think him and Blabber will be the deciding factor in that. If I had to give a prediction, I'd say 1-1. I think we could easily fall victim to another trap game where we lose to Dignitas because we're not prepared, or we lose to the Golden Guardians because we're trolling and we're just being idiots and not doing a good job. But hopefully we can get the 2-0. I'm not so sure, but we'll have to see. But that's all I have. This is a really short episode. I apologize. It's kind of hard to draw an episode when it's just one guy. And I kind of go kind of quick. But hopefully you enjoyed this mini-sode of me rambling about what happened last week. Be sure to follow us at C9Bodied on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube at C9Bodied. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Hopefully my lovely co-host will be back and ready to talk about C9 in more depth. So thank you, and goodbye.